Faced with the looming disaster of climate change, the Trump administration published a report recently, which, at the end of the day, painted a pretty bleak picture of the world if we refuse to rein in carbon emissions and switch to a cleaner form of energy. Now, there is one problem, of course. Trump himself, the president, doesn't believe his own report. Now, I talked about that. And yesterday, when he was asked by reporters about the 13 governmental agency report on climate change, he said, well, I don't believe it. I mean, I looked at it a little bit. No, you didn't. You didn't look at it. You didn't read it. You didn't care about it because you already made up your mind. Oh, I don't believe in climate change. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in the science. I don't believe in the scientists. I believe in my gut. Later on in an interview with the Washington Post, he went into further detail. He said, one of the problems that a lot of people like myself, we have very high levels of intelligence, but we're not necessarily such believers. You look at our air and our water, and right now it's at record clean. As to whether or not it's man-made or whether or not the effects that you're talking about are there, I don't see it. Not nearly like it is. What does that even mean? No, we've got record clean. We've got record clean water as it pertains to water. And by the way, it's big water, ocean water. No, the guy is not a very smart person, okay? And since he's talking about having such high levels of intelligence, it's kind of funny considering that we're not even talking about necessarily the air or the water, which are not at record clean. What we're talking about is carbon in the atmosphere. And yes, that does have something to do with the air, with the water, but we're not necessarily talking about just that. We're talking about the climate as a whole. Now, that White House report, which he's referencing, included data from 300 researchers, right? And notes that the country had already warmed 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit over the past century and will warm a further 3 degrees by 2100 unless we scale back the use of fossil fuels. Now, predictions even said that at its worst, warming could approach 9 degrees or more by the end of the century. Now, look, 1.8 degrees, so we've already seen what's happened there. Okay, stronger storms, more wildfires, changing climate, we've seen that, okay? The drop of ice in the Arctic. We have seen all this already. That's 1.8 degrees. Now imagine doubling that. Then imagine going to 9 degrees. Oh, it's unfathomable what kind of changes are in store if we don't actually do something about it now. So, look, it also says, by the way, that among threats to health and the environment, it also warned that sweeping damage could cut off as much as 10% of the U.S. economy. So that, even if you don't give a shit about the climate, you might actually want to care about the economy. If all you care about is money and productivity, well then, you might want to look at this and go, oh crap, here we're going to have massive economic impacts. Maybe we should actually do something and create jobs along the line, such as enacting a Green New Deal. Okay? But here's the thing that's really, really important. This is based on actual data, actual facts from people that are much smarter than me, likely you, and definitely Donald Trump. These are people who do research for a living. So they know what they're talking about. But of course, right now, there's a big problem in the United States, and it's basically a strain of anti-intellectualism as well as anti-elitism. I get it, right? The elites are cut off from us. I get that, right? And if you're a member of the elite and you're not doing the right thing, if you're doing the wrong thing in order to enrich yourself, that is a problem. If you are a smart person and you have money and you're actually doing the right thing, you're actually trying to do the right thing, you're trying to eliminate economic income inequality, if you're trying to look out for the environment, if you're using your money for philanthropic causes, great, more power to you. I don't have a problem with that, right? If you're an elite person, great. As long as you're doing the right thing, I don't care. The problem with our elites right now is that they're not doing the right thing. They're doing all the wrong things in order to enrich themselves. But we have this strain of anti-intellectualism. I mean, look, take this quote from Trump's interview. He said, they're making a mistake. Meaning the scientists, right? Because I have a gut, and my gut tells me more sometimes than anybody's brain can ever tell me. Oh, it's my gut. He thinks his gut is smarter than everyone else, is smarter than scientists, smarter than people whose life is based on research. And he's doing this based on a feeling. But wait a minute. What happened to facts, not feelings? MAGA guys. Ben Shapiro, where are you? Where are you? You want to talk about facts versus feelings? He just says, I got a feeling in my gut that everybody else is wrong except for me. Well, what happened? What happened? What happened to science? Oh, don't you care about science? No, of course you don't care about science. You care about politics. You care about pushing your agenda. That's all you care about. Look, here we have is a dumb person in charge, right? And guess what? When dumb people are in charge, things start to fall apart. Now, I actually like it when the people who run things know how to actually run the thing they're in charge of. I like smart people, okay, in positions where they're supposed to be, where they can actually use their skills to do the best. And we do not have that. I mean, call me a fucking elitist if you want. But when it's the fate of civilization at stake, let's get some smart people in charge who know how to fix it. And Trump, he's not a smart person. He's not a very stable genius, right? He's a conspiracy theorist surrounded by fucking clowns. For example, clown number one, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Now, she recently got on the air and she said this.
The president's certainly leading on what matters most in this process, and that's on having clean air, clean water. In fact, the United States continues to be a leader on that front. Even Obama's undersecretary for science didn't believe the radical conclusions of the report that was released. And you have to look at the fact that this report is based on the most extreme modeled scenario, which contradicts long established trends. Modeling the climate is an extremely complicated science that is never exact. The biggest thing that we can do is focus on how to make sure we have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the president is certainly doing that and certainly leading on that front.
How is he doing that? I mean, the president's about to go to Buenos Aires and meet with all the leaders of the world's industrialized nations and developing nations as well. Isn't this a great opportunity for him to sit at the table and say, folks, this is what my administration just reported. This is the time that we ought to act in concert to prevent what my administration is forecasting?
Once again, we think that this is the most extreme version, and it's not based on facts. It's not data driven. We'd like to see something that is more data driven. It's based on modeling, which is extremely hard to do when you're talking about the climate. Again, our focus is on making sure we have the safest, cleanest air and water, and the president's going to do exactly that.
Oh man, we'd love to see something more data driven. That is data driven. It's driven up. It's your entire, this came from the Trump administration. Okay, you don't believe your own government's report. You can see how they did it. You can look into their methodology. You can see all the data that they have gathered. This isn't, it's an Obama report. So obviously they've got a political agenda. These are your own people. This is your own government. And she's saying, no, I don't believe it at all. It's not based on facts. It is based on facts. Look, all climate reports are based on the same kind of modeling. And that model has actually been pretty conservative, right? Because for a long time, scientists were like, no, we got to make sure that we don't alarm people because they're going to call us alarmists. So we'll publish the most conservative type of reports that still say, come to the same conclusion that, hey, we need to get away from fossil fuels. We need to start doing something better for the environment, and not burn as much coal, etc. We come for the same, we're going to try to do the same thing. We've got the same outcome, but we're not going to scare the crap out of people. Well, that's changed because now it's panic time, right? Those worst case scenarios that were before are now considered the best case scenarios if we do not act. Because, look, this is serious. We have found, data that actually shows that it's worse than we had thought before. The oceans had actually absorbed a lot of the carbon, and that has been leading to more ocean acidification, bleaching of corals, etc. So the ocean is actually taking a big hit, but it's getting to the point where the ocean is pretty close to not being able to absorb any more carbon from the atmosphere, which means the more carbon that we're emitting, or at least the same amount of carbon that we're emitting, now is getting added even more to the atmosphere, which is going to exacerbate future warming trends. It is going to get far worse. So this is serious. Nonetheless, clown number 2, Ryan Zinke, he said that this report's conclusions were based on, quote, the worst scenarios. Well, then what's the best scenario? If at least you're admitting that some of these scenarios are plausible. But even though Zinke got it wrong, in fact, you had an author of the report taken to Twitter, and this is Catherine Cahill. She is a co-author of the current assessment and director of the Climate Science Center at Texas Tech University. She tweeted out, quote, I wrote the climate scenarios chapter myself, so I can confirm it considers all scenarios, from those where we go carbon negative before the end of the century to those where carbon emissions continue to rise. So she knows, and she calls out the bullshit. It's like, actually, I wrote that. It takes in all factors, and what you're saying is not wrong. Or I'm sorry, what you're saying is wrong. The report is not wrong. We are headed for some serious disaster. But of course, as I've shown before, experts are not going to sway the president because, well, he doesn't care about facts. Well, he cares all about what his gut says. And his gut says Donald Trump can never be wrong. Donald Trump is 100% right. And so let's go Cole. Facts don't matter to him, man. Look, he spreads insane conspiracy theories. Again, just look at some of the stuff that he said before about climate change, for one, that it's a Chinese hoax meant to kill American manufacturing. He's also had conspiracy theories about the president's birth certificate, etc. So he, spreads misinformation. And unfortunately, he is in a position of power. Somebody who should be ridiculed and laughed at and disregarded is one of the most powerful people on earth. And his stance on climate change is literally playing with people's lives. Everyone on the coast is going to be affected. Half of Florida is going to be underwater by the year 2100. That is not hyperbole. That will happen as oceans rise. And when, of course, people start leaving their homes because they're inhabitable because of extreme heat and extreme conditions, well, then we're going to have mass migration that no one is currently prepared for, much less the United States. You think the immigrant caravan with 4,000 to 5,000 migrants, you think that was bad? Oh no, you haven't seen nothing yet. What happens when 1 million, 2 million people start trying to get in other places, start trying to leave their homes because they can't stay in their country anymore because their country is under extreme drought conditions or is underwater. We are not prepared for this. We are not prepared to see what is coming. But we know it's coming because it's right in front of our face. People are warning us. But no, we're not going to do anything about it. We're ignoring it. And it's because of idiots like Donald Trump and propaganda outlets like Fox News, think tanks like that are funded by the Koch brothers, ALEC, all these different organizations that don't give a shit about the climate, and all they care about is short-term profits. That's all they care about. And they are steering us on the course of destruction so they can make an extra buck. That's what's going on here. And unfortunately, until we actually throw off that strain or get rid of that strain of anti-intellectual bullshit and actually look at the facts, we are headed in for a massive disaster. So buckle up, everybody. Because unless we can fix this and we can work on fixing this now, we're in for a hell of a disastrous ride. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality. which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.